So I picked up the iPhone 15 Pro. I upgraded from the iPhone 13. So it is a couple of years between upgrades, and it's from the base model regular iPhone to the Pro phone. And this is my first iPhone Pro phone. And it does come with some big changes, including the action button. And honestly, I'm going to summarize the whole video by saying that the action button is not a game-changing feature, and it's not a real reason to upgrade from any previous iPhone. And I do see a few issues with the action button, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the first issue that I come across with the action button is that it's an iPhone Pro feature only. You're not going to get the action button if you get the regular iPhone 15. You're going to have that physical switch that's been around since 2007. And I think it is a travesty. I think it's a bummer that if you want to experience a new feature on an iPhone, and it's a really big physical feature, Apple doesn't really have a lot of upgrades physically wise. And if you really want to experience something different, you're going to have to pony up the extra money for the Pro model, the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. And I think that's kind of a bummer because Apple just made this specific choice to make it a Pro model feature. And honestly, like a lot of Pro model features, they're very minor. They need selling points for people to get and showcase why they need to buy an iPhone 15 Pro. And this seems like kind of like a shady move among other things that Apple does. So yeah, my first issue is that the action button is only available on the iPhone 15 Pro models. I quickly realized that when you hold the iPhone 15 Pro, and I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold it with my right hand with my thumb on the right side and 3 of my fingers on the left side to hold it. And most people are probably going to be right-handed. And if I want to quickly use the action button, I have to awkwardly kind of move up my index finger and then hold it in place. And I could see this really being frustrating at times, especially since I'm rocking a case. It's kind of hard to dig your finger into the action button, and then I always tend to quickly double tap it. I always forget, since I've had the phone, you have to hold it to activate the action button. The thumb sits at a perfect location if I want to hit the power button. So I think that would have been a better location, somewhere on the right side, because there's only one button on the right side, and that's where your thumb naturally sits. So if you wanted to do a quick action with the action button, I would have put it where my thumb is. So, and this is even worse on the Pro Max version. So you've got a real big unwieldy device. It's too huge of a phone. It's going to make it even harder to access that quick action button. So I think Apple really dropped the ball right there. It makes it almost impossible to use. You're going to want to use this feature less and less, just because of the awkward location of where the action button is. Now, there's also an issue with the action button when it's not your iPhone that you're trying to control. And let me give you an example. If someone leaves their iPhone 15 Pro in a room and they leave the room, you don't know if that iPhone is on silent mode. And you could have quickly taken a look in the past with past iPhone models and just quickly look and switch off the sound with that silent switch. Now you can't do that with someone else's iPhone. So if they leave their phone there and you try to go and turn it off, you might not be able to do that depending if they remap that action button to camera or to the flashlight. So if the person disabled the control center on the iPhone you're trying to turn off the sound, you're not going to be able to do that, because you need their passcode or their Face ID. You basically need them to unlock it at that point. So if someone leaves their phone and it's somewhere that's supposed to be quiet, there's no way to disable that sound feature. So that's a big bummer, and I don't think it's gonna happen that often. But if it does, it's gonna be very, very awkward trying to silence a phone that can't be silenced. The other issue I quickly realized, and I was very disappointed when Apple announced the action button. Right away, obviously, I was like, okay, we could finally do different things with the action button. A lot of people were excited, but I was under the assumption that the action button can do two things. I assumed that the silent option was always going to be there, depending on how many clicks or depending on how long you leave your phone pressed on it. There would be always an option to enable or disable the sound on the iPhone Pro, the iPhone 15 Pro, but that's not the case. You can't. You have to choose between silent and the sound feature, or the flashlight or the camera. So if it's not on the silent option, then you don't have, you just lost it. So if you quickly wanted to do that, you have to go to the control center and go to the option there and turn it on and off. That was a big failure by Apple, because that's something that's very, very important, is always having that option to silence the phone. So I was under the assumption that that was always going to be an option, and plus the flashlight, plus the camera, things like that. So I was really caught off guard with that. One thing that I quickly realized with the action button is that it's redundant, because the lock screen, you can quickly get to the flashlight and the camera shortcut right away from the lock screen, and it's pretty quick. Once you lift up the phone or you unlock your phone and you're sitting at the lock screen, you could quickly go to the flashlight, quickly go to the camera button with your thumb. That's typically how you're going to access it, and right now it's very, very fast. I just don't know why they have to make the action button the only one where you could switch the function to the flashlight and to the camera with that button. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know why Apple doesn't let you just pick whatever action you want, whatever shortcut you want on those two lock screen buttons. And that could have been done to all iPhones. It wouldn't have just been held just to pros. This could have been done to a lot of different iPhones. So I think by Apple making the action button the only one that will let you quickly switch to different quick actions is just a way to push new iPhones and make the new iPhones better to sell. Make it a feature for you to upgrade. But they could easily have gave us the option to pick whatever we wanted on the lock screen shortcuts. The last gripe I have with the quick action button is that I don't think a lot of people are going to use it. Me personally, I'm not going to change it from the vibrate silent mode. That's something that is very important, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree with me that that's a feature you quickly make, you have to turn off in certain situations. And I don't think I'm going to be changing it that often, because right now we can't do a lot of functions. They're not really that useful. If you want to do a voice recording, if you want to do a focus mode, those are just features I don't think a lot of people are going to be changing that often, that they quickly need to whip out their phone and hit the action button, especially if the flashlight and the camera shortcut are already easily accessible from the lock screen. So yeah, it's a pro feature that only a handful of people are going to use. I think the action button is just a way to sell more iPhone 15 Pros. So in short, I do think that the action button is not that important for a lot of people, but for the few people that do use this, it's going to be handy in certain situations. But unfortunately, it's not a standard iPhone option right now. This is only available on the Pros. This could have been a way different story if it was available on the regular iPhone 15s. And that might come in the future, but as of right now, it's not a real good reason to upgrade to a Pro if the action button if that's something that you think you might upgrade to.